wate haya, oya teke haya, weche chaging tacha, hechamu elo, hey, oh. Welcome.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. I also come here today in memory of Ingrid Washington Watstock, a young Menominee woman, young girl as she was when she came to the American Indian movement. Her father and her mom used to travel from Chicago, Illinois, back home, and they never failed to stop at the American Indian Movement headquarters on 13th and Franklin, and she was only about 10 years old then. But she grew up in the movement. She became a leader, not only among the Indigenous Women's Network, another organization, the International Treaty Council, but a warrior in the struggle for justice and freedom. As most of you know, Opikta Matima, our Flying Eagle woman, was kidnapped. He was kidnapped in Colombia on March 4th. And I received the phone call not just a few hours after that happened. And I tried everything possible, not only myself, but my brother Bill Means and others, to intervene on her behalf. But we were held off by not only her family, her immediate family, but the National Red Cross, the State Department, and 3 governments. They were asking us not to say anything, not to try to do anything, just sit back and wait. It was the hardest thing that we ever had to face in our life, to know that our niece, the young lady who became my daughter when her father passed away, she looked at me and my wife as her father and her mother. And one of the last people to see her before she went on that trip, and for some reason I was worried. And we expressed our feelings to her. And she, of course, just laughed it off like she always did. There's nothing to worry about. I'll be okay. And they found Ingrid and 2 other people along the Venezuelan border. All 3 of them had 3 bullets in the back of their head. And we still don't know to this day exactly what happened, because the people that they were trying to help, the indigenous people, the Yuwa tribe that they were trying to help build a school, were also fighting to keep Occidental oil, the exploitation of their resources. And Ingrid developed a foundation within the Rockefeller Foundation and became the leader of the Four Directions Foundation, and funneled hundreds and thousands of dollars into indigenous people's movements, not only throughout America, but throughout Central and South America. So I brought these posters here today, and you are welcome. We're having a memorial for her on August, June 25th, on 26th, 27th, 28th. Her family and her father and all of her friends are going to be at Pipestone, and we're going to honor her. and her family, particularly at that time, this particular time. But I'm also here because of the victims' families, the father, grandfathers, uncles, aunties, relatives, nephews, and nieces that are grieving not only for the recent murders that have taken place here, but hundreds. If you want to go back further than that, thousands of Indian people who perish every day across the Americas and never heard from them again. We cannot sit by any longer and allow what has taken place here. When I came here to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation and made that call, responded to that call from the women in 1973, I already knew about the murders that had taken place that had never been solved to this date. I heard numbers anywhere from 40 to 60 to 150. This is why we're here today. Every family, every relative on this reservation should be here today, as they were when we went into Gordon, Nebraska. I can remember leaving in my car out here and pulling into Gordon, Nebraska yesterday. That's Indian power, the way I understand it. It's up to each and every one of you to become involved in this process. Each and every one of you to sign whatever it takes, petitions, letters, demands. I heard the President of the United States is coming here, supposedly. I don't know if he'll come when there's things like this happening. But if he don't come, we ought to condemn him too. I know he's coming here to respond to a tornado. Why don't he respond to the tornado of murders? Tornadoes of murders that have taken place right here on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation and across Indian country. Why don't he call for a special prosecutor, as they do when somebody's milking a bank or stealing land from one another? They have special prosecutors coming in to deal with that issue. We should demand a special prosecutor, a special grand jury, a special investigation, not only in these recent murders, but every murder that has taken place on this reserve in this nation since Wounded Knee and prior to Wounded Knee in 1973. If he doesn't want to respond to that, we shouldn't even allow him. We shouldn't even allow him to come here to Pine Ridge. If he's just going to look at the tornado and forget about the tornado murders that have taken place on this reservation. So those of you who are taking this, take it and make sure you make a copy of it and make sure that William Clinton and Hillary and Gore and whatever other presidential candidate comes to this reservation know exactly how we feel. And I want to thank each and every one of you. Each and every one of you in this room. Many of you in this room have stood shoulder to shoulder with the American Indian movement when we came here prior to Wounded Knee and during Wounded Knee and since Wounded Knee. And I want to thank you for that continuous support, especially the women, especially the elders on this reservation within this nation that never turned their back on the American Indian movement and its national leadership, when even the leadership of this great spiritual movement that's sweeping the nation, that's brought the Sundance back, brought the Sweat Lodge back, brought this recognition of the sacred pipe, brought schools back, brought the Medewan way of life back, taking hundreds and thousands of young people and old people off the streets of America and sobered them up. that you have stood and recognized that when even the leadership of the American Indian movement was under attack. You've always stood with it. That's why I'm here today. I'm here to stand with you. Whatever you decide to do, whatever venture you decide to take when we leave this building, I'll be there with you, as we were in 1973, because you deserve that as the first peoples. You deserve that type of respect, not only from us that are here today to be with you, but you particularly deserve that kind of respect from those that are going to be visiting this reservation and using it as some type of publicity stunt to lay out a platform for the elections that are coming up. That's the bigger reason why they're here. Because if they cared anything for Indian people, they would have called for it, put a stop to this type of genocide that's going on yet today. Be grateful.
For sure, WE-GON-WE-WAY-WE-DUN, Indigenous cause of Fishak, Doden, Anishinaabe, Gitchida, Fire Society, Gathering the Sacred Pipe Sunday. My spirit name is WE-GON-WE-WAY-WE-DUN, or the thunder before the storm. And I like that a lot better than Clyde. But I wanted to say here today, I'm deeply honored not only to be at this forum, but to be with you in this room, my relatives, my brothers, sisters. You know, everything that is happening today has been prophesied. We are merely a fulfillment of prophecy. Our children are the seventh generation that our grandfathers and grandmothers talked about when they signed those sacred documents called treaties. They signed them guaranteeing that their children would still be here today. They would have their language, their culture, their tradition, their ceremonies. All of that, they talked about the oppression that would come about us. Where all of that would be taken from us throughout the whole Western Hemisphere, not just the Anishinaabe, where I come from. They talked about the suffering, the genocide, the massacre, the theft of land, the use of alcohol as a bad medicine that would divide and turn people against one another. But they also said that during that seventh generation, they pinpointed it to the fifth generation, that a people would rise again. People would rise again. And I've been told no matter what tribe, nation I go to, that was the formation of the American Indian movement. They even said they would become dressed in red beret. They have hair tied with red ribbon. They'd be carrying a drum. All of that. This forum that we're here today was founded by the American Indian movement called the International Indian Treaty Council. And we found out during a 9.5-month trial in Minneapolis following Wounded Knee that they're not going to honor our treaty, which was introduced every day in court. And when we were found innocent, based on governmental misconduct, illegal use of military forces, illegal search and seizure. We proved that in court. The judge, a very racist judge, said it's not the Indian people that are guilty, it's the United States government. They're guilty of governmental misconduct, illegal use of military forces, and illegal search and seizure. He said the rivers of justice, this very racist judge. The rivers of justice have been muddied in my courtroom for 9.5 months, and I refuse to allow it to go any further. You cannot use military forces against other people anywhere in this world, not unless within our own borders, without congressional or presidential approval. Who do you think you are? He banged his gavel and threw all the charges out. We knew that this treaty council had to be formed because the government and its courts were never going to recognize. We called the meeting 96 traditional leaders, spiritual leaders, elders from many different nations. None of them a tribal chairman showed up. And they directed us to formulate the treaty council to seek non-government organizational status. And at our first gathering, leaders from out the Western Hemisphere, Central, South America, Bolivia, who were living in other countries because they couldn't go back home, they would be assassinated, came to that meeting. And then we established an indigenous forum to reach out to all indigenous people in the world. It took 30 years. They don't talk about that here. They don't talk about the American Indian movement and its basic history. But I'm going to talk about it tomorrow morning. I'm going to let them know where we're at today. And if we have a political party, it has to be this international forum of indigenous people that come together and decide how that's going to be. I know we can help shape that policy. But myself, I don't want to get involved in this democracy, this so-called democracy. It sets out in the middle of the ocean, sends drones 200-300 miles away to kill women and children. I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to be a mayor. I don't want to be a city councilman, senator, congressman. I've been asked many times to do that. I'm the founder, one of the founders. I'm the national director of American Indian. There's no other higher office for me. No other higher office for me. I don't want to cast no ballot, in that other white man's process. I don't want to be part of that Trump system that can support it the other way. So I think we have to think seriously, very seriously. And I'm not saying that my brother shouldn't do what they have done and are doing. I support them. I'm totally solidarity with them, because their circumstances are much different than ours. So we have to think very deeply and seriously about where we're going with this whole process. I do know that we're here today representing 370 million people. That's a pretty big party. Yeah, that's who we represent today. And that came from about 80 women and children, mostly, who met on the north side of Minneapolis, right torn side after Martin Luther King's assassination, and decided we had to do something. We had to stand up. We had to stand up or we would perish as a people. And look at us today. Who would think that we'd be here today? An indigenous forum representing all the indigenous peoples of the world. That's the party we have to build. That's the party we have to support. And I see things happening, changes that's taken place in all these countries where people have been murdered, assassinated. Genocide is going on today, but they've come out from under that, like the prophecy said that we would. We have to use our tobacco where I come from. We have to put it out. We have to pray. We have to sing. We have to dance. We have to participate in all the things that were taken from us. That's where our power and our answers to all the questions that we seek will come through that. Through those prayers and those ceremonies that we practice today. My heart today soars like an eagle today. Soars like an eagle today, just to be able to set you with this great family. this family of nations, indigenous people that are meeting here. And we're all participants. We're all one family. We're all one family. We have to remember that and carry that family. We're grandpas and grandmas and aunties and uncles and sisters and brothers and nephews and nieces and all the way down. And that's the way we must treat one another. And our prophecies say, our prophecies tell us that we're going to succeed. Our grandfathers, grandmothers, the Geronimos and the Craziors and the Hole in the Day and our great chiefs said that we would survive as long as we held on to our spiritual, traditional way of life. I want to say that much. Spiritual name is WE-GON-WE-WAY-WE-DUN, or the thunder before the storm. My colonial name is Clyde. It is always an honor to speak to indigenous leadership and people of the world. Allow me to give you a brief history of the International Indian Treaty Council, the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, the United Nations, Economic and Social Council. I am a founder and national director of the American Indian Movement, and one of the co-founders of the International Indian Treaty Council. The American Indian Movement was formed in 1968, and we thought that absolutely nothing was being done to upgrade the conditions that Indian people are being forced to live under here in America. Not one single treaty made between Native nations and the United States government was being honored, which guaranteed us and our children's survival. The right to practice our own spiritual and ceremonial way of life, to speak our languages, and to hunt, fish, and gather and practice our traditional forms of government. In 1974, 9.5 months after the liberation of Wounded Knee in South Dakota on the Pioneer Indian Reservation, the American Indian Movement leadership was spent with hundreds of years in prison for defending our treaty rights at Wounded Knee in South Dakota. The United States Federal Court, before the Laramie Treaty of 1968, was introduced each and every day by famed attorney Larry Leventhal as our defense in one of the longest trials in the criminal history of the United States government involving Indian people. Judge Fred Nichols refused to admit this covenant of international law in our defense. Of course, the world now knows that all charges were thrown out by Judge Fred Nichols, stating that the rivers of justice have been muddied in my courtroom for the past 9.5 months. It is not the Indian people that are guilty here. It is the United States government. He expressed judicial rage for the government's misconduct, illegal use of military forces, illegal search and seizure. Who do you think you are? He admonished the prosecutor. You cannot use military forces anywhere in the world without presidential or congressional approval, and then threw out all charges. Following all these events, the American Indian Movement leadership decided that we had to form a treaty council to bring our case before the world communities, or we would never survive as a people because of the ongoing attempts to annihilate us, the continued violation of our treaties, the destruction of our natural resources, and attacks on our traditional way, including the century-old long savage of the federal boarding school systems. This first meeting took place on the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation in South Dakota. The traditional leadership and delegates from 96 nations attended this historical greeting, this historical gathering. The It was determined that we would never survive as a people unless we reached out to the world community and bring our case before the world court. This genocide against people did not allow us to pray our traditional manner, speak our language, or practice our traditional way of life. But this resulted in our culture continuing in one form or another the way very day. In 1975, the International Treaty applied for the United Nations non-government organizational status. In 1977, it was granted, being the first indigenous organization to achieve this recognition. In September of that year, Indian National Treaty Council hosted the International Conference met in Geneva. This concluded 282 delegates from throughout the Western Hemisphere, many of them from Central and South America that were in political exile. The permanent forum on indigenous people here today was the result of the conference in Geneva that reached out to over 370 million indigenous people around the world. As all of you know, it was a 30-year struggle with the United Nations struggle to bring the Declaration of Rights of the Indigenous People of the world. It was finally adopted in the General Assembly on September 13, 2007. My brothers and sisters, battle to protect our lands continue. And 75% of all energy resources in North America are still on Indian land. Most important, water, the most precious white medicine is still being stolen from governments and greedy corporations. We must stand together in total solidarity and fight this monstrous act of the survival of our children. We must continue to think like our grandfathers and grandmothers, chiefs, and great leaders before us who vision that would be like for our children generations from now. To conclude, Madam Chairman, we demand that President Barack Obama, as the Commander-in-Chief, and his War Council, to recognize and issue a public apology that they continue to attack Indian people for comparing one of our greatest leaders, Geronimo, to one of the most notorious terrorists known to the world, Osama bin Laden. It is time for North America to get rid of this frontier mentality that the only good Indian is a dead Indian. Finally, Madam Chairperson, my delegation looks forward to strengthening this great world family relationship that has been created and developed, and that our children, 7 generations from now, will remember us for protecting and promising their rightful legacy of a spiritual and traditional way of life. The spirit of Geronimo will live with all of us forever. WE-GON-WE-WAY-WE-DUN. The thunder before the storm has spoken. Nikanigana, 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 Nikanigana. All of my family, all of my relations.
Thank you.
honor these ladies here tonight that are going to be showing their love from all of you for the work that they are doing to make things better in our local communities and in our world communities and our children and unborn generations to come. We love you. We love this family. And that's why you have such a tremendous gathering here tonight, Ali, because we care about you. We know the great loss. I know our feels also. Felt that this afternoon. You know the great loss that Maki is going through. His other family, his family. Cultures and the great family in the nation. And I would like to sing a song. Kichimani to the grandfather, the great spirit. To the Shomish Manitou, creator, the great spirit. To watch over you, to walk with you, to step by your side. And whatever you do in life, always be there. In this way, we thank you for the American Indian movement, for sharing this beautiful lady, beautiful person with us. It meant so much. It meant so much to everyone in this room here today. When I talk about Mishomish, I'm talking about the grandfather Manitou, spirit, grandfather spirit. When I sing about Pichi, I'm talking about the great Manitou, the great spirit. Like this. Grandfather, Great Spirit. Grandfather, praise for the East, Grandfather. We send the sun every morning to spread this warm light. May we can use God. Grandfather, we ask nothing for ourselves because of our homeless. We have no food to nourish the body, no medicine to heal the wounds, there's no fresh clean water to drink, Grandfather. We ask for blessing today. Lord, we show me get your mind to Grandfather, Great Spirit. We ask for blessing for all the nations and tribes and nations to the south of us that have no food, no shelter, no medicine to heal the wounds and sickness of Grandfather, even fresh clean water to drink. Lord, send the sun and the spring of life to melt the snow and the ice and give life to all that's in Mother Earth, Grandfather. We ask for blessing for them tonight. Lord, we show me get your mind to Grandfather, Great Spirit. We offer our prayers to the west, go home now. For all of us traveling to live a life. As for all the spirits of our grandfathers and grandmothers and all the great leaders who look at this good way. We offer prayers for all the tribes and nations for South, Grandfather. We have no food, no shelter, no medicine to heal the wounds and sickness of Grandfather. No fresh clean water to drink, to bless and watch for each and every one. I'm just want to get you mind to Grandfather, Great Spirit. We offer these prayers to the north, for the white bear, the white buffalo dove, for the people, the medicine for the people. Grandfather, we ask nothing for ourselves, and blessing for all the tribal nations. To the north, we have no food, no shelter, no medicine to heal the wounds, with no even fresh food. Father, to drink, Father, blessing for them. I'm just want to get your mind to Grandfather, Great Spirit. We ask our prayers for Mother Earth, for all that she would provide. Father, we ask you to continue to provide that powerful medicine that flows through the rivers of feet and the creeks of the ravine. Mother Earth has continued to nourish all life here on earth with powerful medicine that you pour into. Now we shall not get your mind to for those that cannot be here tonight. The hundreds and thousands that have been taken away through the foster care system, foster God, not knowing from whence they came, Grandfather, that you take them by the hand, Grandfather, bring them back home, so we can walk hand in hand to the future. And we shall not get your mind to it. For all of the elders those in old age home, separate from their homes and family, have no one to come to visit them tonight. For brothers and sisters that are fighting these terrible wars, the water, Grandfather, we bring them back home before our time. Let's just gather here tonight. We shall not get your mind to it. Bless all these guys, bless these ladies, especially Grandfather, that have come here tonight to continue to look after us, continue to take care of us, continue to nourish us, Grandfather, and continue to guarantee that our children are whatever we like. Lord, we can't even on, 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 all of my family, all of my relations. Be rich.
Walking